Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Maximum warp. Punch it. Punch it.
Punch it, Bishop!
Punch it.
Punch that shit!
Let's punch it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Punch It, Writing in Star Trek. I'm your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me, as always, is...
Charlene Schmidt.
Charlene Schmidt. Today, we have a very special topic, but before we tell our listeners what it is, I want to give our listeners a little love, specifically one listener in particular, and that is a longtime listener, huge supporter of Punch It, as well as To the Journey, when we were on Trek FM, and a good guy and a person I've been following on Twitter and Instagram for a very long time, and that's Damian Haywood. And the reason why I'm giving him a shout out is because he made us some fan art, some digital fan art using Blender, where he made us, I don't want to, it wasn't a logo, but what he did was he took our new logo, Punch It, Writing in Star Trek, and he made it look like a paperweight on a 24th century desk, and you have a couple of pads on the desk.
With your script, with your story on it, no less, which was an
Yes.
amazingly cool, cute detail. But it's got this nice, homey atmosphere, right? There's a cup of coffee. It's got nice lighting. I mean, it feels cozy. It's like a place where if I were on a vacation, I just want to be sitting there, hanging out, and writing on a pad.
Yeah, it was really awesome because when we were knocking around ideas on what we could do for the logo or the new logo or show art or episode art or anything like that, one of the ideas was a desk with coffee and a pad. And we ended up not going in that direction, but Damien
He nailed
did,
it.
and without us even talking to him, and it just looks awesome. And like you said, it has my story on the pad, which was such an awesome attention to detail. And
So
that's
much.
him, and we tweeted, like, he tweeted it to us and the Nerd Party, and so we tweeted it out on our private channels as well as on the Nerd Party channel, and we're going to put it in today's show notes. So if you go to thenerdparty.com/punchit and go to episode 48, you'll be able to see it. It's fantastic. It's great. And also give him a follow over on Twitter. His Twitter handle is DAMIANJH. And he says I always say his name wrong because I've mentioned it before on some previous shows because of my American accent. Apparently, I say it funny, which I don't know how I'm mispronouncing Damian Haywood, but whatever.
Well, I don't know how they say it. He's in Australia, right?
Yeah, he's from Sydney.
Okay, so apparently they say Damien differently there.
I guess. I don't know.
Damien, record how you say your name over in Australia. Let's compare notes. Let's see what the difference is, and then we'll talk about it online.
But everyone should check him out. Give him a follow. He does some really cool stuff on Blender and everything like that. And he's always been a big supporter of ours. So thank you very much, Damien.
Yes, thank you.
And we've actually, throughout the years, because you and I have been podcasting for a long time, not necessarily on Punch It, but in other avenues as well. And we've had people write scripts for us, do photos, GIFs, and so many other different types. We have some of our listeners are some of the most artistic people that I've ever met or digitally met. And so if you guys want to continue to do stuff like that, like if we tell a story on this show and you really like it, you want to write a script or you want to write a short story or you want to do some artwork or some photography or whatever you want to do, please send it to us. You can go to thenerdparty.com/contact, select Punch It from the drop-down menu, and there you can fill out the form and you can send us an email or you can submit it to us on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. You can find me personally on Twitter at The Insane Robin.
And you can find me at Oh the Profanity, and it would be an honor, you guys. We have a collection of this kind of stuff. It's crazy. I never would have thought anybody would take the time to do that, but people have, and apparently people still will. That's so cool, you guys. Oh, I feel the love. I really do. It's so awesome.
All right, so what we're going to be talking about today to get into our topic is something that every Star Trek fan knows about, or at least I think every Star Trek fan knows about, because this is something
They should.
If you don't know what it is, you're going to learn today, because this is a concept that I'm sure you're aware of, but maybe never heard the name. And a lot of non-Star Trek fans have no idea what this is, but it's a bottle show. That's right. What we're talking about today is a bottle show. And here is how Memory Alpha describes it. Bottle show is a production term for episodes which take place mostly on existing sets and do not generally involve major guest stars. The term itself is derived from the notion of bottling up the action. Equivalent terms are ship shows and bottle episodes. In such installments, action and special effects are often minimized. So there you go. All the action usually takes place just on the ship or just on the station or whatever show you're on. And they don't go to those strange new worlds. They don't usually meet new races. They don't beam down. They don't have a landing party or an away mission. And it's a way to save money. That's the biggest thing. It's the way to save money so that they can spend more money on sets next week.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole impetus for a show like this, is it not? Is budget constraints. So I would argue that with episodic television, this was more of a necessity than it is for a more ongoing story. But I think it's also a little more easily done. However, I think it's a little more easily recognizable too.
I think it's fun. It's interesting. Like when you usually you can tell when it's going to be a bottle show, like right after the teaser, when you're just like when they establish the conflict. You can feel like when you're watching Twisted, you're like, oh, okay, like on Star Trek Voyager, and then all of a sudden they have that phenomenon, and everybody's strapped on the ship. They're just like, oh, okay, this is going to be a bottle show. Let's strap in.
Well, or groan heavily. Some people really don't like the idea of bottle shows.
Why?
You know, I don't know, because I am actually kind of a fan of bottle shows. I think it's great for character moments and growth, and also as a writer, it presents a very specific kind of a challenge where you're either up for it or you're just, oh my god, again? So, and especially on a show like Star Trek, where you know a certain amount of episodes are just going to have to be bottle shows. Like you had that epic two-parter where they just blew it out for the special effects. The following week, very likely going to be a bottle show because the budget just doesn't have it in it. And so, yeah, I think it's a very love-hate relationship with bottle shows. Being such a character-driven fan, I love it. But I think one of the big criticisms is that they're very talky. There's a lot of conversation going on because you're not going pew, 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 and bam, 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 and flying around all over the place.
Now, as we've talked about before, when we've talked about Star Trek, I always say the same thing, is that, explosions are cool, the phasers are fun, and whenever you have a phaser fight or, the double-fisted punch or anything like that, yeah, it's awesome, it's fun, but that's not why we like Star Trek. We like Star Trek for those monologues. We like Star Trek for the moral conundrums, and we like it for the character development and the good writing. Now, I conveniently have a list of all of the bottle show episodes in Star Trek. Now, some of this could be construed as opinion, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out some of my favorites, and let's see what you can glean from some of these favorites here. So,
okay, let's do it.
TOS, The Naked Time, TNG,
Yeah.
The Offspring, The Drumhead, Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is a bottle show, you guys.
Deep Space Nine's Duet, Whispers, The Wire, Facets, Dr. Bashir, I presume.
Even though they were in costume.
Voyager's Eye of the Needle, Chitrell,
Yeah.
Learning Curve, Projections, Twisted.
Your favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone to Watch Over Me. Enterprise Shuttle Pod 1, Dead Stop, A Night in Sick Bay, The Catwalk, Similitude, Doctor's Orders. And I'm not listing all of them. I'm just listing some of my favorites. And those are some of, I know that this is arguable, but those are some of the best Star Trek episodes. Like Deep Space Nine's Duet. Holy crap. That is an amazing episode.
Yeah, that I think ranks very highly on the fan list as far as favorites go for DS9, if not the whole franchise.
And TNG, The Drumhead, and Lower Decks. I mean, these are fan favorites.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lower Decks. I want to know of anybody out there, if you do not love Lower Decks, what's wrong with you? Let's get you some help, okay?
That's why when we were talking about what we wanted to discuss this week on the show, on the new branding of Punch It writing in Star Trek, we wanted to see what could we talk about writing focused, and bottle shows immediately popped to both of our heads. And I feel like with bottle shows that, like, yeah, sometimes when you can, it can be a swing and a miss. It can be a hard swing and a miss.
Oh, yeah.
But I think most times, because I feel like creativity springs from constraint, you get some very, very well written, dynamic episodes that focuses on the internal and the character and the story. Like take Offspring, for example. What would the character of Data be like if it wasn't for Lal?
Right? Yeah, that's a very important experience for him and for his growth of trying to, be a little more human. And what does it mean to be a father? And gosh, so many things. And then, of course, with the whole experiment not going so well, there's that loss. And for 45 minutes, that's a lot of emotion. You don't need special effects to go through that much stuff.
No, you don't. And that's you don't always need a Romulan warbird exploding or 3 Klingon birds of prey just swooping into the action. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about bottle shows. So, like, when I hear that there's going to be a bottle show, I go, oh, good. I start clapping internally.
Yeah, even with, I would say the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, episode 6, is probably as close to bottle show as we might very well get. Now, visually, yes, of course, there's really cool stuff. There's that nice, it's not really a matte painting, but it sort of looks matte painting-ish of Vulcan and stuff like that. But again, very inward in character growth.
See, I don't know. I've heard that before. I've heard a couple people say that about episode 6 of Discovery, and I don't understand it because
really?
they were on Vulcan at the very beginning of the episode, and you see these, it's like really cool graphics and the ship flying off and everything like that. And then, like when Burnham goes into Sarek's mind, we're on Vulcan again, and they're in a shuttle, and then, like, towards the end of the episode, we're on a Klingon outpost or whatever kind of not a Klingon outpost, but we're in a foreign outpost on I think an asteroid, if I'm remembering correctly. And so this is not a bottle show at all.
Well, okay, I guess technically it's not, but it's probably as close as we're going to get. And the Vulcan set is probably a newer set. At the very end, what you're talking about, I don't know if that's a new set. It might, maybe it's a redress of a set, who knows? But my point is it is very just character driven. It's very inward. It uses a lot of sets that are already there, like the hallways, engineering, yada, yada, yada. So, that also reinforces my argument that when you have a more ongoing storyline, serialized storytelling, I think it's harder to do a quote-unquote bottle show.
Yes, I think so. But I would argue that next week, this is being recorded before episode 7, but after episode 6. Episode 7, I think, is going to be a bottle show because it looks like they're stuck in a time loop on the ship.
Yes, kind of maybe like cause and effect, disco style.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it's going to be like. Because as I saw the trailer for it, and like there's tons of it looks like the explosions are going to be epic and graphic and crazy. And I just kept picturing Picard, grabbing onto his chair, going, "All hands abandon ship! All hands abandon ship!
Abandon! Bam!
Bam!"
Yeah. That will be very interesting. Plus, there were some hints that maybe there's some mirror universe involved. I don't know. Yeah. Is that going to be bottle show or not? Because are they going to blow it out literally with the special effects?
We did see Mudd, and it looked like he was on a new set, so never mind. I completely retract what I said.
But it is fun to just kind of, I don't know, we don't know what's in store, so we're speculating entirely, and it's a little fun. It could be, it could not. We'll find out on Sunday.
One thing that I wanted to mention that I thought was actually pretty interesting was Michael Piller. He talked about bottle shows, and he was talking about TNG and Deep Space Nine. And this is him. He says, "We can do a bottle show and save a lot of money on the Next Generation by just keeping it on the ship. Here," and he means Deep Space Nine, "you keep it on the space station, and you are still going to spend a lot of money. You have to because you have the sets like Quarks and the Promenade where you have so many aliens and people in the background. I never really thought of it that way before.
Yeah, me neither. But it's so true. And you always have kind of that big opening shot, too, where everybody's walking around on the promenade. You see that it's a busy, hopping place. You got to pay all those extras for one thing, and then to get them in makeup, too.
Yeah,
that's
I think
costly.
that's the biggest thing is that like you can get extras for cheap, but you got to clothe them. You got to do makeup, not just makeup, but alien makeup.
Right. And even if they're not doing a fully detailed job, still, it takes hours to put that stuff on.
I never really thought of it that way, but it seems very simplistic once you say it out loud. It's true that Deep Space Nine is just an expensive show.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, like, budget-wise, how did that stack up? I want to do some research now, but let's stay on topic. And I want to bring up something that Kate Mulgrew said it was the season 2 Voyager DVD set, it was produced like 12, 13 years ago now. The writers may be up for the challenge for a bottle show, but the actors, she talks about how after you've done a few bottle shows that everybody gets a little stir crazy. She says, and I quote, "You do 3 or 4 bottle shows back to back and everybody starts to get wacky." And knowing that cast, knowing how much they love to do practical jokes and goof off a little bit and have fun with each other, could you imagine the things they were doing on set when they got to wacky stage?
Yeah, it's got to be draining. But here's the thing, this is insane. I'm looking at the list of Voyager bottle episodes, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bottle episodes. There could be more, but this is just what Memory Alpha says. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the 9 of those are from season 1 and season 2, and season 1 was practically season 2. And
you know why? It's because they broke the budget so hard on producing Caretaker with all the reshoots and the Geneviève Bujold thing. They were recouping their losses, I think, from that.
You know what? I think that's as good a guess as any. That's pretty solid logic, because it's as I was looking at this list, I was like, Parallax, The Cloud, Eye of the Needle, Jetrel, Learning Curve, Projections, Alobadrum, Twisted, even Meld, and The Swarm. The Swarm is in early season 3.
Yeah, and if I'm recalling correctly, Projections, Elogium, Twisted, those are all, I don't know if they're consecutive episodes, but they are produced very close together, so that must have been Wacky Stage right there.
And they were in season 2, so yeah, that's probably what she was talking about.
Where they needed to go outside.
It's so true, and that's kind of I love this kind of stuff. I love this kind of thinking, like with Pillar and Berman and everybody like that talking about the logistics of it and how to save money or how not to save money. Even David Livingston, talked about it, where he says he's like, very rarely do we ever just do a bottle show on TNG. There's always some kind of element that will be visually interesting. So David Livingston is talking about how even when you try to do it on TNG, they got to throw something special at you. So there's that. And Deep Space Nine is talking about how there's always going to be lots of extras, and because the sets are huge. And then you have on Voyager where Kate Mulgrew say, well, the cast gets a little crazy when you do too many. And so there's always these real world. It's always fascinating to me when real world logistics and real world knowledge impacts 24th century storytelling.
We're learning how the sausage is made, so to speak. And as far as bottle shows in general go, I don't think you completely encapsulate. It's not like they're completely restricted to, say, a few sets. I mean, there's always a little something. Like you were talking about your favorite episodes before. One that you didn't mention is one of my very favorites from TOS, and it's the Doomsday Machine, and it's a complete redress of the Enterprise bridge. But then you've got like the planet-eating papier-mâché monster thing. Mm-hmm. And that had to have been built. So there's always a little exception, but still they have a very tight budget and really have to tame it down, I guess is the point. But there's always that little something, and what it is varies a lot, I think.
One thing also that I'm thinking about is I feel like the term of a bottle show might be a little too constricting, because think about Macrocosm.
Yeah.
Voyager's Macrocosm, that takes place 99.9% on the ship, and that 0.1% is on a shuttlecraft, and that's it.
Right, and so then you have the CGI aliens taking up some of the special effects budget, which I imagine cost quite a bit back in the day. So maybe that's why it's not considered a bottle show, but set-wise, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's why it's taken out of the running, because the visual element was expensive.
So it makes me wonder then, whoever compiled this list on Memory Alpha, are they looking based on budget?
I don't know.
I don't either. I would like to know now. So somebody please write in who knows a lot more than I do and inform me.
Now, one thing that's interesting is that, like, some of the times, and like when you're writing an episode, and sometimes writing an episode, what you set out to write a bottle show. Like, it's not so much like, oh, well, this just happened to be a bottle show while I was writing it. It was, no, okay, for this week of this season, we need a bottle show at this time because Best of Both Worlds is coming up soon. You know, that kind of thing. And
right? Yeah.
like the Naked Now of TNG was conceived as a bottle show adaptation of The Naked Time when it was written, and along with The Next Phase and Power Play, those were conceived as bottle shows on TNG. But as they were writing them and as they were doing rewrites, they had to expand the script, take them off the ship and onto another world or into another ship and everything like that. And so, like, this tells us that through the writing process, sometimes, at least with these iterations, the producers and the writers were willing to sacrifice a little budget for the story, which is always good to hear.
Indeed. Oh, that's really interesting. For one thing, I had no idea that Naked Now was considered or was conceived to be a bottle show, and Naked Time was listed as a bottle show on Memory Alpha. So I don't know, were they thinking on those lines just because of budget? Things like that.
Yeah, it's possible. I think so. I think there are times when that they have it planned out the year before, or like the summer before. They're just like, okay, this is going to be a big set piece. This is going to be a big set piece. So let's throw in a bottle show this week instead of the week after that. But I also think, like you mentioned with Caretaker, you know, they're just like, oh, holy crap, we ate into half of our budget.
A lot of unforeseen circumstances there that they had to massively compensate for. But I think more often than not, they have to have so much planning with the production process. They basically have to write in the bottle shows, right? That just, you know, especially when they're planning those big epic two-parters that they know are going to be the special effects extravaganza. There's going to be a lot of sets or whatever. You know that they've got to find a way to at least break the budget even. So it's like regular episode, epic two-parter, bottle show.
yeah, exactly.
Regular episode. Because that's sort of how it feels like when back in the day when November and May sweeps were a thing, because they were, for those of you who are over the age of, or under the age of 30, that's when everybody would put out their very best material and compete for ratings back when it was just air TV and cable. And so that's when they pulled out all the stops and gave us all their really big stuff. And then things really died down in, say, December, January. You'd get reruns mixed in with some of the lesser shows, and that's how things worked.
Now, one thing that I think is interesting is there's a person called Lisa Wilkie, or Wilk, I don't know how to pronounce it, who was a writer who was uncredited for Tin Man.
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember something about this.
Yeah, she said, this is her quote, "I had gone to the sets a year before, and Michael Pillar's assistant told us, bottle shows. All they want are bottle shows. Don't go to another planet. Make it as cheap as possible, and maybe they'll buy it."
I am so glad you brought this up, because back in the day when my 13-year-old self called the hotline to Paramount Star Trek hotline on how you submit spec scripts, yes, this was a part of the rules. If you were going to submit a spec script to Star Trek in the 90s with their open policy, you could not introduce new characters who were going to be the center of the story. You could not have epic battles. You could not write two-parters. You had to keep it really sucked in.
That's when I read that quote, I immediately thought about 13-year-old Char. I was
Did
just
you
like,
really?
yeah, I was just like, because if you're not on the writing staff and you want to get into it, or you want to sell a script, if you're not in the room and you're outside and you want to sell a script, yeah, you better make it a bottle show and you better make it as cheap as possible. And I'm sure
Right.
that pubescent Char did that.
Oh, yes. Oh, I called that number several times, so much so that my mom asked, who's calling Los Angeles?
Yeah.
What are these long distance charges? Who do you know in Los Angeles? I'm like, I got to call Alita Fat Joe about the Star Trek thing. For
And
real.
also, for those of you under 30 as well, long distance charges is a thing.
Yeah, that
when you
was
had a
a
home
thing.
phone.
Area codes mattered, and it wasn't on a cell phone. You just used a good old landline. Because only the really rich and business people had cell phones / car phones and all of that. And they barely worked anyway. But anyway.
I think that's a great thing, though. I think that's a great policy for writers who are writing spec scripts or want to get them sold, whether it's to a drama or a comedy or sitcom or whatever it is. I think that's great practice because it makes you focus on the internal. It makes you focus on the emotion, the drive, the behavior, and not on, like you said, the explosions and the craziness and the epic battles and all that kind of business, because it's easy to make a $5 million Star Trek episode. It's easy. It's easy to do that.
Anybody could do it. Yeah, anybody I think can describe an epic space battle, and special effects could make it just look amazing, and people would just eat it up. I mean, the movies do it all the time, right? So actually, I love that you brought this up because it's so true. I mean, when you are putting yourself out there, if you go write a spec script like 13-year-old Char did and you submit it, this is your audition to show your skill as a writer, to show that you understand these characters inside and out. You know their motivations, you know what they will and will not do. And if you get it right, you just might get a pitch, if you were lucky.
And speaking of such, everyone should go to thenerdparty.com/filibuster and check out episode 57 because our good friend Lee Hutchison, who is the host of Filibuster, he interviewed a gentleman by the name of Will Stape, and he was an individual who actually submitted some spec scripts. And though I think he submitted 2, or I don't know how many he submitted, but 2 got picked up. And
yeah, I think he did more, but 2 got through.
But 2 got through, and they were retooled and renamed and remade into Homeward and Profit Motive.
And it's fantastic because he talks a lot about that process and what he went through and what it was like. And so if you want kind of an insider's point of view, that is it. Listen to that interview.
Yeah, and it's Lee Hutchison is always just such a fantastic interviewer. So go and check out his show. All right. Well, Char, do you have anything else that you want to say about bottle shows? Like, is there, out of the list that we talked about, what would you say is your favorite? I mean, I know you probably want to say Shades of Grey, but fight that urge. Fight the urge.
Tristan, I do not want the wrath of Twitter just gnawing at me for a week straight. No, it's not Shades of Grey. I honestly, I think even if I took mind-altering substances and watched that episode, it still wouldn't be good. But, boy, okay, it's a tough question because there's always the distinction between personal favorite and then what is objectively good, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to limit it to Voyager because that is, of course, my favorite. I want to say my personal favorite is Eye of the Needle.
Okay.
But Someone to Watch Over Me is the objectively good one. What say you?
I mentioned it a couple times before. I have a hard time because Duet is fantastic, and I love The Wire, and Jetrel. You know how much I love Jetrel. And I love Twisted. Like, Jetrel and Twisted are 2 of my favorite episodes in Voyager of all time, out of all of them.
Yes, on your top 10 list.
But for the beautiful writing, the emotional impact on the character as well as the audience, I'd have to say The Next Generation is The Offspring.
Really? The Offspring. Yeah, and Lower Decks is really high up there for me, too. God, it's so hard. I hate ranking. I really do. Like, the more I try to do it, just, it's so subjective. But anyway, Yeah. And so I think that goes to show there might be a couple of bottle stinkers, but there's some really freaking good ones in this mix.
Now, what we want you guys to do, our lovable listeners, is figure out, go to Memory Alpha, type in Bottle Show, scroll down, and take a look at the episodes that are designated as bottle shows. Tell us which ones are your favorite, or tell us which ones
and tell
you
us why.
think. Yeah, tell us what you think are bottle shows that might not be on that list and why you think they're bottle shows. And what you can do is, we mentioned it at the top of the show, but we'll tell you again, go to thenerdparty.com/punchit and check out all of our previous episodes. But to write us, go to thenerdparty.com/contact, select Punch It from the drop-down menu, and from there you can fill out the form. You can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, and you can do all of that by going to thenerdparty.com.
We also have a brand spanking new review on iTunes. It's been a while.
Woo!
Oh my God. So we have a 5-star review from Alfred Scats. I'm not sure how you say this name, but it's really cool. And they say that we are Trek positive. Yes, thank you. And they say that we make shows that cannot be missed. Great conversations about the Star Trek universe. So thank you so much. We really appreciate the review. We appreciate the love. And thank you for doing your part to help others find the podcast so more people join the party.
Yes, please. And go to iTunes. Leave us a review if you like what we're doing. You can leave us any review that you think we deserve. But if you give us a 5-star review, we'll mention you on the show like that great person just now. Well, I think this is a good stopping point for the show. I'm excited to do our second Star Trek show in a row since our rebranding. And you know what? No matter where we go, no matter what we talk about, I think the helmsman is going to punch it.
Ready for warp, sir. Let's punch it.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.